It has been through the media for quite a while now, I think about a week, telling us about how there's a bounty that Russia has placed on the lives of U.S. soldiers inside of Afghanistan. And this is a big outrage, and of course, in order to do so, you would also have to attack Donald Trump because he's allegedly a Russian puppet, etc. Well, I mean, first of all, from the very basis, it should be citation needed. Of course, once again, this is the U.S. intelligence agency saying this with absolutely zero evidence being given to the public. The U.S. intelligence agency say. Well, they also said Russia stole the election, which was a falsehood. They also, all of them said that there was weapons of mass destruction. That was also a falsehood. So, I mean, at this point, you can certainly understand why a lot of people would not take what the U.S. intelligence community says all that seriously. Okay, so from a logical basis, it doesn't even make sense. What would Russia gain from doing that? The Taliban are already fighting the U.S., and they're doing it in their own national interest of kicking imperialists out of their country. How does Russia putting a bounty mean anything? Taliban already have all the incentive they would possibly need. For Russia, this is just throwing money away. Like, it doesn't actually financially benefit them in any significant way. Yeah, Russia would like to see them lose. I bet a lot of people around the world would like to see the U.S. lose. But that doesn't mean they're going to spend exorbitant amounts of money making it happen. Now, for me, this really seems like a kind of projecting. You remember how the CIA was funding the Mujahideen, who eventually ended up becoming the Taliban, to fight the Soviet Union? That's what it seems like to me. It's total projection. And of course, the U.S. doesn't even deny that they were doing it. They are very open about the fact that they were doing that through the the 80s and early 90s. So I mean, that's the real story here, is the projection that the U.S. is giving in this situation. I mean, they're doing everything they can to demonize Russia because that's the general policy of the United States right now, because Russia is a competing power. But it's also one of those things that has absolutely zero evidence. The same way Donald Trump, like, you could tell what he's going to do if you just go by his former tweets. Whatever he accused Obama of, he did it himself. And this seems to be the same way for the United States in general, particularly the intelligence community. Because I think a lot of people need to realize, just because Trump is really bad, it does not mean that every accusation that's made about someone who's allegedly his friend is true. I really don't see how Putin and Trump are supposedly best friends when he keeps putting sanctions on Russia. And he carried out an attack on Syria that killed Russian soldiers. Was he like their best friend when he did that? But of course, that context gets removed when the media wants to go after Russia. And then certain media wants to go after Trump as well with this information. A more honest media would mention the previous things that they did that were completely against Russia. But things like CNN, MSNBC, which have a heavy Democrat bias, are going to ignore those and just say, look, the president is being a traitor, etc. The fact is, there's little to no evidence that Trump is any kind of a traitor to the United States, other than his blatant, completely ignoring the Constitution, etc. in that. But as a traitor to another country, that he's selling out the United States to another country, that's complete nonsense. The truth is that Trump from day one has only ever been about himself, and has only ever been out for himself. So this idea that somehow he's working for another country is nonsense. He's working for him. And he doesn't really particularly care much about the country insofar as his approval rating for his own ego. So I think those are some really important points that need to be kept in mind when people are talking about, all of this Russia collusion nonsense, Russia's putting things on our troops, etc. Because we do have to understand that this alleged, they're putting bounties on our troops, mysteriously as these peace negotiations start between the Afghan government and the Taliban, talking about having peace, and one of those major issues is having the United States leave the country. Though those are going on, then all of a sudden there's this story about how Russia has been putting bounties on U.S. troops. Oh, so now all of a sudden we've got this, magical reason to want to stay in Afghanistan now because it's Russia that's trying to get us out. We're not losing or anything. We have to stay there because Russia wants us out. And anybody who wants us to leave, i.e. somebody whose campaign promises were to end the wars and then did the opposite, Trump, must therefore be on the side of Russia. The fact is the United States has been losing that war for 2 decades. They are not going to win. And the rest of the countries too, including the good little puppet country of Canada. We're not going to win this war. We're going to lose to the Taliban. If we were going to win, we would have already won by now, but it's not going to happen. So, as the American people are starting to get fed up with the war in Afghanistan, the troops are getting fed up with the war in Afghanistan because they have to keep dying for something that's completely BS. And the Afghan government is getting antsy about continuing to have U.S. troops in the country slaughtering their own people with a free hand to do so. And there's peace negotiations going on with the Taliban, and magically we find this reason to stay in Afghanistan. So I think these are certain points that do need to be looked at when we're discussing whether or not this allegation against Russia is actually true. Because, as usual, there's zero evidence behind it.
Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.